Danielle Patterson, and this is the Matt Balaker podcast.
Hello, good people out there. And by tuning into this program, you are a good person. And I show my love for the support you've given me by continually bringing on top shelf guests. And today's guest is outstanding. I'm really excited to have her. She loves nature, family, art, and building businesses. She's a proud banana slug and owner of the Family Office List. Please welcome Danielle Patterson to the program. How are you doing, Danielle?
Oh, I'm excellent. Thank you, Matt. I'm so pleased to be here. I'm honored to be on your podcast.
Well, I'm honored to have you on because we have a fair amount in common, including both being middle children. Danielle, what do you think it is about being a middle child that makes us so much more well-adjusted than the rest of the population?
I attribute it to, I'm a peacemaker, I see both ends of the spectrum, and I always try to find solutions and bring everyone together. It's crazy. As the middle child, I'm the only one who's actually moved away from California. And I find it's when I come back, all I want to do is just bring everyone together. And I think as a kid, being that middle child, at least for me personally, that was kind of my role as well. It was you got to look out for everyone, and you tend to kind of be that middle go-between.
Sort of the peacemaker, and in my case, attention seeker. I try to carry a microphone with me wherever I go, whether it's podcast or on stage. I want a voice amplified. But no, you seem very well adjusted, and you grew up in California is a big state for people stating the obvious. Can you share with our audience where you grew up and what it was like?
Definitely. So I was born and raised Orinda, California, which is really this idyllic, beautiful 40 minutes outside of San Francisco. So you head into the East Bay, and right as you pass through the Berkeley Hills, you kind of enter this amazing little mecca. Before you get to Walnut Creek and it gets hot, the fog doesn't quite reach there, beautiful rolling hills. And it was really a beautiful upbringing. I was very close to my grandparents on both sides. The town that was right near my high school, my mom's parents lived, and then my dad's parents lived in Redwood City, so not far away. We really were just kind of this very close-knit family. And it's pretty cool to see, when I go back, I still have a lot of friends from high school. I don't know how they are affording it and pulling it off, but a lot of them have come back and are raising their families there in Orinda.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's probably has the most, $2,000 a square foot homes in the country, I'd imagine. But since the 90s and early 2000s, the tech industry has really changed the East Bay. But it's still beautiful. It's just a different demographic, I'm sure, has moved in.
It is. And what's interesting too is that, when I go back, there is this untouched element of Orinda. It's still very old school in a way. They don't have chains. It's, very kind of sleepy town, but definitely seeing the people and the dynamic, it has, kind of evolved as everything in life.
Yeah, everything in life does evolve. And you had a situation that I'm sure caused some change in your home life. I guess when you were in fifth grade, your father got laid off. What's the story there?
Yeah, so being raised, my dad worked for Kaiser. He was an engineer. Really, really awesome. When they were much younger, his projects took him all over the country. My brother was born in Egypt. They spent time in Italy. Just a lot of adventure. But of course, I'm child number 3 of 4. It's, you got to settle down. And so he traveled a lot. My mom worked. She was a teacher. Now having 3 children of my own, I'm like, how on earth? She was a Wonder Woman, just in everything she did. And I think I was really blessed by great friends whose parents and, kind of took me under the wing. We did a lot of carpooling in our neighborhood. We were all just kind of one big community. But yeah, when he lost his job, it was hard. We had the support of our families, and there were savings, but I think there's a lot of I don't want to say pride, but it was like, we're going to solve these problems. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to get super resourceful, which I really admire in both my parents. My dad ended up getting this like networking, kind of, we were like, I'm not so sure about this, but it was a network marketing, and my mom got in on it with him. She actually, like, over the summers started her own daycare center at our swim club, like very entrepreneurial, just finding ways to make this all work so that, the trajectory of sending us all to college, like none of these things would be disrupted. And it was pretty awesome to see, like in retrospect, when they talk about those years, they said it's probably the most fun they ever had. They got to work together, they got to travel a lot through it. And I think my dad's very resourceful. He, is very good about, investing money and living simply. I mean, we had a beautiful home, but they preserve everything. We're not, I don't know if it's a California kind of environmental thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we were very resourceful. We weren't wasteful. We didn't eat out. It was just kind of maybe the time in which we were raised. But it was hard to see the stress, but I think it was also really admirable to see the solutions that they created for themselves.
Yeah, you guys built a low carbon footprint before it was trendy. So congratulations.
Totally. It's like ingrained in who I am. I get disgusted by like all the plastic bags and yeah.
Well, it's an important story, because especially if someone's an engineer and working at Kaiser, which, even then was still, it's huge now, but it was a very like large medical provider. And it's easy to think, all right, the stability is going to last forever. And then to kind of have the wherewithal to pivot and do something in marketing that's kind of related, and your mom joined, like, how did that influence you as a business person?
Yeah, I think for sure it just taught me resiliency and being open-minded, because it was never anything. I mean, my dad didn't see this coming. None of us did. But, when times get tough, you find solutions. And, we talk about it now because as kids, we didn't really understand the business behind it. But I mean, he did incredibly well. And network marketing is really about building, the team around you. And he said, he got incredible people that were basically doing all the work. And so it was interesting. And now, being an adult, going back and talking about these things, as a kid, I remember they had a conference in Pinehurst. It was the first time I'd ever been to North Carolina, and they brought us, and just kind of seeing, this networking event and how it all went down. It was neat. It was different. It was the first time as kids we ever got to really kind of like go along and see the inner workings.
Well, I think that's a great way to learn. I mean, you can take classes, but seeing what your folks do is probably more valuable.
Totally.
So I want to, take us to your college days. Santa Cruz, one of the most scenic parts of the state, or really the country,
Yes.
known for biological sciences. Great comedy festivals. DNA puts it on. Shout outs to him. But what was your college experience like, Danielle?
Yeah, so very unique. So first of all, graduating high school, learning was hard. I now know I'm dyslexic and had ADHD or have it, but I didn't know this being raised. I think I had to work really hard to get good grades, but I like cared. So I worked extra hard, but then certain things like art, creativity, I excelled. So like I'd on one hand be getting like help for like basic reading, and then I'd be in like the gifted and talented for art. So I was like, okay, do I go to art school? Do I just, is this my career? But my mom, in addition to the teaching, all the amazing things she did, she was also an artist, but she never did it for like a career. She did it out of love. And so she would like gift people. And I always kind of saw art, like when you're doing it for money, it becomes different. So I don't know that I can just commit to going to art school. I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to go get more of a broad education. And I applied to like Boulder, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, some of these places. But when it came down to it, my parents have always been really practical. They've supported us. Like, you get this much and then you're on your own. They did that for our wedding too. Like, we'll give you this amount, anything else, and you can use it how you want. So I was like, yeah, going to a UC, college makes the most sense. And Santa Cruz out of them all, to me, just being so beautiful, right there on the beach. You've got the redwoods, funky, very liberal. I was the very last year, this is hilarious, clothing optional and grade
That's right.
optional. So we got written evaluations, which you're like, I don't know how that translates as you go to get your, next job. But it was, it was everything in life, as we said, evolves, but it was a really cool time to come in. You still have like the hippie drum circle, but you also have, all the emerging tech. And, but I got so lucky, the housing crunch, you really were only entitled to 1 year on campus. So as a freshman, you put in the dorm, great roommate from Colorado. She was a volleyball player, got on great, met like my core friend group, which to this day, they're all like family, they're all still in the Bay Area doing really, really cool things, but we just immediately clicked. And so in the following years, we lived off campus, just, a lot of fun, a lot of partying, but, we got to take alternatives. You would take like surfing class and modern dance and physics for poets. It was definitely a liberal art, but, I found my happy place. I studied fine art, painting, photography, which back then it was just being in the dark room and really learning to train your eye for composition. So, interesting. I took a digital art, and it was, it's not even anything that it is today. So it's really changed, but it was, I see that education as building social skills, making these lasting friendships, and really just learning independence.
Yeah, very, very comprehensive. And I think you're a rarity when it comes to art majors because you got a job in the field pretty soon right after college.
Oh my gosh. It was like my dream job. Yeah.
Well, we're in suspense. Can you tell us about your dream job?
Well, okay. So when I met my husband, we just dated at the time. I remember I had this little red book and I would like write things down, it was my to-do list. I write everything down. I'm this crazy note taker. But I remember I wrote, I wanted to get to know this guy who became my husband, and I wanted this job working for Franz Lion-Team. He's a National Geographic wildlife photographer. And just beautiful work. It's everything he does is to, promote a message of sustainability and, protecting these beautiful assets. He and his wife are just this amazing dynamic duo. She's a writer and a videographer. And so they would get to travel the globe and work on these projects. And while they would be gone, it was like all of us young kids running the show. There was a woman who managed his stock photos. So she was like the studio manager, the licensing manager. Then he had the whole team that was, processing all the images, because at that point he was shooting in digital. And then I managed the gallery, which, really encompassed a lot. It was cool. He'd come out with books, and so I'd be, mailing them. And he's Dutch, so he had a lot of international sales. I remember one day, literally a crate arrived with thousands of books, and challenge number one, how do we get these things inside? Where do we store them? And then fulfilling the orders, I was totally in over my head. So I created an intern program with students from the UC, which for them, it was just like me. We were all starstruck. It was like, oh my God, I get to work for Franz. He hosted workshops, which was really cool. People would come from all over and they'd go out on these, shoots around the Monterey Bay, and he would also do presentations. So every year it was typically to raise money for a different subject he was speaking about, but it would be these neat, engaging slideshows, and I'd be there to help sell the autographed books and things. So it was a great job out of college, very fun. I like the dynamics of that small team. I think I navigate it well with my interpersonal skills, because I don't want to say too much, but of a challenging character, but
a world famous artist had some eccentricities. Do tell. Well, you're clearly your father's daughter, because at a young age you're building out your own network and creating something better than if you did it all yourself. So
oh my gosh, and I do joke the database, the VIP, because they would raise a lot of support for these projects, And so we would do these like e-blasts, and I totally remember, the VIP. So yeah, I definitely learned the early ropes of building a network. And
yeah, you earn the early, learn the ropes early. And because it was such a quick transition from studying art to working in it, what suggestions would you have for art education now, because you actually worked in the business?
yeah, for sure. I think in retrospect, would I have been an art major? I might have been a business major, because I don't think artists learn how to monetize and to sell themselves. It can be really hard. We can be introverts. We may not want to share our work. So I think art education can have a focus on how do you make a business out of this,
Mm-hmm.
and art can be very impactful. And so maybe teaching tools where you can use your art to maybe, create a positive impact, and how can you make that more collaborative?
I love that, because, people get into art for all sorts of reasons. For many, it's personal enrichment. But, the fact of the matter is a lot of us have to make a living one way or the other. And if you can give people the tools to make a living doing something they love, I mean, I can't think of a better job than that.
Totally.
I mean, maybe hosting this podcast. That's
So
pretty
there you
close.
go.
So, unfortunately, it wasn't all just smooth sailing after this. 2009 happened, and this was a time when a lot of adjustable rates adjusted in a way that didn't help buyers. It was not wonderful for those in the financial services. How did the crisis of 2009 impact you, Danielle?
Yeah. So really interesting when I look back at this time frame, because I took a short stint, maybe like a year, and I worked at a gallery in downtown Santa Cruz where they had really high-end like jewelry, but other very unique glass pieces, pottery. And I watched the stress that business owner had to go through. And eventually, I think a few months after, I'll get into it, we moved. He had to close shop. And it was just really hard to see that impact on so many people close to me. And my husband owned a landscape design company. They were doing amazing projects, these beautiful homes overlooking the coast. And he had designers, and it was really tied. He had a couple relationships with builders. So there were a couple of these big projects in Napa, but then when the homes weren't selling, these landscapes weren't going in. And, it was a really hard decision, because he had spent years, it was like his baby, and he was so responsible to all these staff, but he decided, we've got to close down. And we were like, okay, well, we have this big mortgage. We own this house. We've spent the last 2 years of our lives like weekend warriors. We would have my parents over. We would just like completely gutted the whole thing and really loved our home. But it was like, well, we don't want to lose it. And we don't want to have to go the bankruptcy route. So we literally were like, okay, let's just start selling stuff. And we found a renter, and we were like, we're moving to the East Coast. And just kind of started afresh, did everything we needed to just, surprisingly, the whole experience, although heartbreaking to leave California for me, it was really just tough leaving my family, being that we were so closely rooted. There was a part of me that was like, I'm ready for an adventure. I never studied outside of California. And, as long as I'm with Warren, who's just, we had fun. What some people could view as a hardship, we actually treated as an adventure. And we drove cross country. We had our 2 dogs, and it was one of the best times. I had my camera, like really unforgettable. And his parents, incredible people. When he was 13, he moved from South Africa. His parents, entrepreneurs as well, just wanted to create a better life. They were the conditions there, they just, were not safe. And when they came, they were in Hilton Head. His dad had a gelato company. And it's funny because gelato now everyone knows, but he was like way ahead of the curve. He kind of struggled to like get the adoption, but he did his thing, and they lived in Hilton Head and really never left that area. Moved to Charlotte because his older brother is a pilot, and his dad actually took up flying. So US Airways is like the hub in Charlotte. So they lived a little town, and just welcomed us in. I think they were so happy to have us near, and it was kind of like, okay, are we really, we're like moving in with your parents? But we were, I think they loved having us there. We got them eating healthy and exercising, and it was like, what can I do? We were like washing the car and taking odd jobs on Craigslist. I started doing a lot of my own photography. I was doing weddings, and but really struggled to find that like artistic community. It wasn't really there. So Warren, in wanting to be helpful, he couldn't help but observe the way his dad was doing his business, which was bookkeeping. And he found a solution for him. He's like, Dad, why are you running these files like 40 minutes to your clients uptown? Like, there's got to be an easy system. And he found some cloud hosting solution and saw, oh my gosh, they have like an affiliate. He built his own company, outperformed, and ended up getting acquired by them. And like being the person he is, he split it 50-50 with his dad. And I mean, just remarkable. I mean, it changed their life too, because they gave up a lot to come over from South Africa. And so it's like they gave to us and we gave right back.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was like the American dream personified. Like, can you give us more color on that, Danielle? So he worked with his dad, helped find this cloud-based solution, and then because of that, the company was sold.
So yeah, I know. I kind of fast forwarded through that. So yeah,
I'm sure it was that easy too.
He started a company called Cloud Hosting, and it was basically an affiliate of this cloud hosting company that was ironically based in San Francisco. And Rick, the owner, it was pretty nice because again, we didn't have a lot of money, so it was great to like get the company to fly us back out. I'd go see my family, and he'd go into the office, and really just, his thinking, maybe being an outsider, not in the industry, he was able to really just kind of generate sales and processes that performed so well. The owner ended up acquiring his company. So, I mean, it was huge for us. It wasn't anything, he really sought out to do. He was just finding solutions for his dad, and and one thing leads to the next. And so that company, they went on and they sold that. When he was acquired, he was worried, well, this new company, the CEO may not need a chief operating officer. He's already got a team of his own. So right. He started, by that time we had 2 children. So, the stakes were a bit higher. And he was always looking for like passive income. And he was always, there's like a website, Empire Flippers, where they have like online businesses and you can evaluate, the income. And he found one that he was like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's family office list. And, being who he is, he kind of, was working with the founder, Douglas Fathers. And, Douglas, super enterprising guy. Tons of these financial services companies, and really at the heart of what he does, he's a fund manager, and he's off in the Bahamas. He's doing a lot in offshore funds, but the tool Family Office List, he created way back in the early 2000s when he needed to raise capital. And, the natural progression was, raise that seed capital, friends and family, and then go look to ultra high net worth, get some introductions. And he really discovered this world of family offices. So he, built a prospecting list. And when Warren partnered with him, he was like, yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity. It's not really actively being managed. So Warren started, I'm like listening keenly, pitching in with my marketing. I love marketing and sales. And he and his new partner, I mean, hit it off tremendously. And I was like, well, what about Family Office List? What are you going to do with this? He's like, well, it's fine. It can kind of run itself. And I couldn't let that opportunity pass. I was pregnant with number 3. And meanwhile, my job, I was kind of like, well, I want to have kids. I need like a stable job. I need some benefits. I don't know what kind of benefits you have, but I took a job working the front desk at a pediatric dentist and orthodontic office. I mean, really ironically, my mom's mom worked in an orthodontist office. Who would have known? But I they like liked my personality, my warmth, and they put me at the front desk, and I quickly learned the elements, the basics of like insurance and dental and all that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you are so creative. I think my first project, I made a marketing video that like showcased the heart of who we are in the team. And, I mean, for me, I was like, this is awesome. I get to do like an art project. And then they're like, you need to do marketing. And Charlotte, the dental industry, it is like the most competitive. I mean, you walk in, you're getting like swag and it's fancy. Oh, wow. Yeah. So it was really fun. I got this pretty extensive marketing budget, and I put together the whole plan. It was like festivals, engaging in schools, teaching, dental health month. And it was awesome. I ran with it. And, once that was like in action, it was like, okay, well, I did really well for her brand. She needed to expand. So we opened the second practice, and I kind of at that point was getting pulled into more of the financial element and getting funding and working with the accounting of everything. And, that element, it was all new to me, but her husband, again, I work with these like small little businesses, work the dynamics, really took me under his wing, showed me a lot about the business aspect, which I did enjoy. So it was a really unique experience, but I found that I was working very long hours, weekends, and I'm ambitious. I was like, I'm never going to be the dentist. Is she going to open another practice? Not to say getting bored, but I'm like, So when this family office-less opportunity came, I'm like, I'm taking a big leap of faith. I'm more risk averse than my husband, but I thought, things are good. You're happy with your new partner. I'm going to do it. And I love like the basics of putting like live chat, responding to email, answering the phone, built a new website. Business, started just like, wow, this is a little gold mine. But, being who I am, I was like, I don't love what I'm selling. So we've got to like up the quality. So I found, some dedicated researchers. They've been with me, through it all. And we've just tried to really work with like our client. What is your goal? What is your objective? How can we help? Not only connect you with, family offices through our data, but what's really important in this industry, a lot of people never even heard of the term.
Yeah. Sorry, I want to pause briefly. I mean, what is a family office, Danielle?
Yes. So you could ask this question to probably like 100 people and get a different answer. It's effectively the entity that manages the wealth of a family that's either, acquired through the exit of a business, or it can be many generations. The Rockefellers are the oldest U.S., family office in existence. But with the tech boom, we're seeing a lot of younger, new wealth. And I think that the concept is really growing and becoming more commonplace because it is an easier way to have more control of your finance. I think, many of these entrepreneurial families are savvy, and they do want to manage and invest their wealth, and they want customized, bespoke solutions. So they kind of build them for themselves.
And good use of bespoke.
Yeah. And for families that don't have, they argue that you need like $250 million in assets just to make sense of the cost it takes to run and have, the talent and the team. But it's not to say every family who has a family office has to have that amount of wealth. We see a lot of multi-family offices, and I think there's a lot of great strategy there. You can, pool your money with like-minded families and collectively invest, or at least take advantage of, the same services in a more economical way. And then we see, which I love, a lot of families doing great things with their wealth and setting up foundations and more kind of philanthropic initiatives.
Yeah, on that end, we had a guest, Ron Diamond, who I think is a friend of yours. And he said something that sticks with me. And he said, largely because of family offices, he was speaking to me. He's like, you and I will probably die with prostate cancer than from prostate cancer. And like, it was actually like a really great thing to hear. And obviously this is a very isolated example, but it goes to show that when people put money behind their passions in a pretty short time, and we're talking decades.
Yeah.
Like this is a major health transition. And again, not everyone has to cure or make,
Right.
but I mean, it's just one example. What are some goals you've seen?
Oh my gosh. I just think it's amazing. I think the hardest thing that a family office faces right now is, yes, it's very fragmented. They're small. I mean, think about any family. You've got your dynamics. Now layer that with money and business. I mean, this is complex.
Well, that just makes people nicer, right? Like I've watched Succession. It brings out the
Yeah.
best in people.
Yes, but I do think, if you get the younger generation, they're not interested in the family business, it can create a lot of friction, and that generational wealth can transfer can basically, the family office falls apart. And I think, to quote Ron, in like the past 10 years, all the family offices that have been formed, after that second generation wealth transfer, 50% of those firms fail. And in the third year,
like, we got the bag. We don't want to work.
Yeah. So I think for me, the exciting trend I'm seeing is, just with anything in life, like you need to know what your values, your core values, your principles. And I think when you can really draw your family together on those values, the investing philosophy can make an impact. And I think younger generations are leaning towards these impact investment opportunities. And it's a great way to like unify the family. And what I love seeing is we get a lot of family offices with the younger generation now. Hey, we want to do direct investing. We want to raise our public profile. Will you list us in your directory? And like, how can we work together? And I just think it's amazing. I always ask, are you interested in impact? And they're like, yeah, we're educating my dad on it, but so it's a new thing, but I love that that's driving, and I think it stands to be just this tremendous way to unite families, to really address some of the problems they have in that generational wealth, and then to benefit, the greater humanity. I think, there's so many amazing people coming up with projects. Like just before our call, I talked to a guy in LA. He's like come out with early detection solutions for cancers, and they've, really, really inspiring. But, everything needs capital to get through. And, when you see these families who already are aligned with these initiatives, for me, it's so rewarding to be able to kind of like bridge the gap.
Yeah. I mean, another important aspect about what you're doing is, if you compare a family office to a venture capital fund, for instance, the VC fund may have a 7 to 10 year time horizon, maybe shorter, but with family offices, it's not so much about a cash return. So like your friend who's working on these early detections for cancer might find a much better home with the family office than somewhere in Silicon Valley.
Totally. And that's the thing, because so many family offices have been operating under the guise of secrecy, it's not really widely known to a lot of people. Like, oh, that's a thing. Like I can maybe step into that club, that exclusive club. And I'm like, yes, like you actually can. They are looking to expand their sphere. And in this day and age, digital technology, they have websites, they're building brands, they want to be found, they want to find you. And it's a great investor choice, in my opinion, because they, like you were saying, with a VC firm, they're going to have these demands. And if you're, growing your business, you've got a lot of pressure to begin with. You want a strategic partner who's not going to be breathing down your neck, who's going to help align your vision and help grow it. And that's, we use the term patient capital with family offices. Their wealth is typically generational. They're not looking for this immediate, sell the company. Now, again, it's hard to generalize. No two family offices are alike. That's really like, as we launched our platform, it elevated. It's more than a list. It now highlights each investor based on their preferences. So you can go put in the filters and boom, like this is who you need to be speaking with. And then we provide a lot of strategic advice on how to go about, it's really your mind frame. These are people. How do you build relationships? It's not like spray and pray and just like hope an email gets opened, So creating more opportunity, more events, ways to I always use the term bridge the gap.
Bridge the gap. So you went from curating National Geographic type photography to curating families, family office lists. So who is the customer for the family office list?
Yeah. So I would say our number one client right now is going to be like a fund manager, someone who's looking either for co-investors for their private equity, or they've got real estate, they just need other investors to invest in the fund. But I think as the term becomes more widely recognized, we're getting more startup founders, we're getting foundations. And then for me, the most exciting thing is I've always kind of one-track mind served my client, and in the back of my mind thought, okay, when I get to a certain point, I'll start advertising this to family offices and engaging them. But more and more family offices are becoming clients. They see the need to identify other families. They like to co-invest because, the due diligence it's tough. If you aren't from that industry, but you want to invest, you've got to have someone who knows, And so we see a lot of these families collaborate, and so that's really exciting. And again, it gets me in a position to get to know them. And then, the more the more you can help.
The more you know, the more you can help. That's so true. And so do you kind of keep the names quiet? Like if someone comes in, or is it just like an open book? Like I guess, what level of discretion do the family offices want?
Yes. Well, we have always honored if a family office reaches out and it's like, hey, take me off your list. We always comply, and I hate to say it, but there's pitch book, prequin, like the names are there. What we're trying to do is educate our audience on a tactical approach where you're really putting yourself in the shoes. You're being empathetic. You're understanding, what is this family office all about? And I think to take it farther, our premium offering is going to be like, okay, those are the family offices that are coming to us engaging. Let's elevate your profile. I think it's so important to know what you're looking for, but what you're not looking for. And many family offices have very loose mandates. So it's like, what are you looking for right now? And whether you put it in your profile or you're just seeking out, all of our subscribers have got some pretty remarkable deals. If you can just get notifications when, that perfect deal that fits your current desire. So that's what's in the work right now with our new development team, is kind of finding a way where those family offices that are really open and looking can have that elevated access and in a sense, can be elevated off the standard list. The list will be there. It's a great tool for someone who's just getting started. It's a necessary evil. You need to understand the playing field. But I think everyone ultimately wants a warm introduction,
Oh yeah, it's like a pretty insular club. And if you can be the warm introduction, I think it helps both parties. And I can't think of a better person to do that than you. So how do you envision this kind of growing? Like if we're talking 5 years from now, what's different?
Well, I'm just like dead set on this premium level where I first showcase my clients who have been so loyal and are the ones paying me. But then it's like inviting the family offices. Like, come on, this doesn't have to be a totally exclusive club. Now I know, the platform's only as good as the diligence I put into, vetting these deals, but we'll do that, and creating more of a kind of an open dialogue. Also, I think there's a need for less commercial events. I think families just want to have like a comfortable, laid back way to engage. And for me, I'm like, impact, again, it's kind of my driving force. So I definitely see those being some highlights that we explore and offer through the platform. And what's really nice is there's some amazing partner solutions out there. Like, I'm all about supporting an ecosystem. And if I can't provide the solution, I'm going to find you the partner that can, and I'm going to get you, like preferred access so that's really like right now we have masterclass series and we have, some partner solutions. And I do see there being opportunity for a lot more of that.
Very cool. Well, you've had an impressive career, and there's going to be a lot more cool things in your future. But looking back, what's like I guess a painful lesson or a lesson that really shapes your approach to things today?
Okay, so I think surrounding yourself with the right team. There are things I am terrible at, and I'm not afraid to admit, like, I'm dyslexic and I cannot spell. So I have this amazing, meticulous researcher who proofreads everything. And I kind of feel that way with my development team. It was what we could do. It was what I could afford. But I'm calling the shots, and I'm not the super tech person. So I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of money on features that just weren't necessary. So again, surrounding yourself with the right team. Like, I'm so excited. I have a CTO now, and it's like, oh, I'm not doing this alone, you know, like we are growing his experience in SaaS and technology, you know. So that's, in retrospect, like, don't feel like you have to do it alone. And that was my biggest downfall as well. I was really quiet for a long time, which does nothing for building relationships. I think intimidated. I felt a bit like a fish out of water, being an outsider in the financial industry, also being a woman. So, but I find the more I talk out, the more well received, and, you know, it's like met some tremendous people.
Wonderful. And what have you done career-wise that you're most proud of?
I think for me, the decision to leave my 9-to-5 job and take on this entrepreneurial journey, I mean, it was really at first to create balance, you know, so I could be there for my kids. There's so many things. I'm like, do any of these people work? Like, how are these parents attending these school events? And, you know, I'm very driven, and I've really got to multitask, but I'm the queen of multitasking, and I'm just proud that I can do both, and that my kids can see, you know, a woman entrepreneur succeeding, and that I can be that role model for them while actively, like, being a part of their life.
Well, you're a role model for them, and hundreds of millions of listeners tuning into this, I'm sure. What are you most optimistic about?
Oh, I think just the collaboration that I'm seeing right now, the inclusivity, just people being able to candidly share their voices. I love that storytelling right now is like the hot thing in marketing, and being authentic. I think it's such a relief, because we have so many preconceptions of like, this is how you have to be, and this is the approach. But when you think about it, you're like, that doesn't work. So I like that there's a lot of disruption going on, and I'm very optimistic about that.
I love that optimism is on trend, or authenticity is on trend. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Well, thank you so much. We definitely want to have you back, but where can people out there learn more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so my favorite choice right now is LinkedIn. I'm trying to post every day, really kind of build a following there, and so that would be the best place.
Excellent. Well, Danielle Patterson, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.